Ready? Okay, I call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Elgin City Council on this 5th day of April, 2022 at 6:30 PM. We'll go to roll call. We'll start roll call with Mayor Pro Tem Brasher.
Frazier here.
Ramirez here.
Vega here.
Gibson here.
Arriaga here.
Maldonado here. Callahan here.
Ibis here.
Tennis here.
Let the record show everyone is present. We have a quorum. Thank you, Council. Invocation tonight will be given by Councilmember Arriaga. Councilmember?
Okay, let us pray. Dear Lord, grant us the wisdom and courage to know and do what is right. Guide us so that this meeting can be productive. Strengthen us as we make tough decisions, and let us be effective and decisive. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we'll do Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, welcome everybody. Always nice to have a full house like we do again. Thank you very much. First order of business is public hearing, number 1. Public hearing on an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Elgin, Texas, adopted in chapter 46, section 46-3 revised code of ordinance, the city of Elgin, Texas, 2013, and making this amendment a part of said official zoning map, to wit, to rezone land from R1 single-family district to PDD, Land Development District, located on a parcel of land known by the Travis County Appraisal District as Parcel 237109, 36.92 acre tract of land in the William Hines Survey, number 53, Travis County, Texas, being more described in Exhibit A and providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances and resolutions. Is there anyone present to speak on that? Mr. Hennig?
Good evening, night. Thank you, and once again, as I always do, thank you all for serving up here because I know it's a thankless job at times. But I do want to say I think this is our opportunity to, as our Mayor Pro Tem had discussed last week, an opportunity to change our PDDs, talk about lot size and the size of these houses. If we keep passing these PDDs and changing them from R1, if we leave it R1, you have larger lot sizes. You don't even have to do anything. You don't have to change the law or anything. But I think it's time to really think about these PDDs. I know growth is coming. We know it's here. It's on top of us. I know we have to approve these, and we have developers just fighting at the bit to develop in Elgin. I really think it's time to stop passing the PDDs, keep it R1, and just manage that development as R1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Sosby. I'm the applicant representing the developer.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just letting you know that we are here for any questions later on as the discussion
Okay.
happens.
Okay, thank you. Since this is the first time for some of you at a council meeting, I want to read what the public comments restrictions are so that we're all on the same page. It says speakers must address their comments to the mayor rather than to an individual council member or member of staff. All speakers must limit their public comments to 3 minutes and must limit their comments to the specific subject matter noted on the public comment form, and refrain from personal attacks or derogatory comments directed at any council member, member of staff, or individual or group. So we have 3 minutes, keep on the subject, whatever you said you're gonna talk about on the public comment forum. And let's make sure that we understand that this is the time, if you signed up for public comments, this is the time for you to talk. But once the meeting starts, then it's a business meeting of the city council. So if you have comments to make during the meeting or something, if you would, keep them to yourself, because if you interrupt the city council meeting, you'll get one warning, and then if you keep interrupting, then we'll ask you to leave. So just remember, this is the time, if you've signed up for your public comments, to express your concerns. And then let us do our business as a council to make sure that we get done with what's on the agenda. Okay, thank you very much. Yes, and the city secretary is running the 3-minute timer, by the way. She'll let you know when you get 3 minutes. Okay, anybody else wish to speak on public hearing number 1? Okay, let's move on. Public hearing number 2. Public hearing on an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Elgin, Texas, adopted in chapter 46, section 46.3, revised code of ordinances, city of Elgin, Texas, 2013, and making this amendment a part of said official zoning map, to wit, to rezone land from an R1 single-family district to PDD Planned Development District located on parcels of land known by the Bastrop County Appraisal District as parcels 15-312 and parts of 62896. Said tract being more particularly described in Exhibit A and providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances and resolutions. Mr. Hennig?
It's pretty much the same thing I said at the last one. Still another PDD. We're doing Elgin, shortening our space between houses to 5 feet. You have 10 feet between houses, but 5 feet from the house to the fence. When you think about it, 5 feet next to your fence, and you have an air conditioning unit there, you're not even going to be able to get your lawnmower down the side of your house because the air conditioner's in the way. That's a very small gap between houses. I mean, I know we've done it in previous neighborhoods, but again, I think these PDDs need to be rethought and keep them R1s so our lots are bigger and we have more space for our residents and build nicer neighborhoods. I'm also very concerned about this boulevard development for this one. This boulevard directly aims into my neighborhood, Avenue F in Ward 4. I'm very concerned about the traffic that it's going to create on 95 at that intersection and what it's going to encourage to come down Avenue F. Avenue F, I'm afraid, will become the new Avenue C when they switched all those lights around. Now Avenue C is a thoroughfare pretty much. I don't want that to happen in my neighborhood. I didn't see a traffic study ordered on this. We're trying to waive a traffic study. I think a traffic study needs to be done before this is passed. I think a water quality study needs to be done as well. There are no retention ponds in this neighborhood. You're expecting all the water from the neighborhood to run into Elm Creek, so that doesn't allow for any type of mitigation of fertilizers, feces, poisons, oil, gas, running off the streets, off the properties, and into the creek. So I think we need some sort of water retention ponds in these neighborhoods to encourage less flooding will develop eventually in Elm Creek from all the developments around it, from Heritage all the way down to Homestead to Peppergrass and now this one. I'm very concerned about future flooding in these areas. It's all headed straight toward Shenandoah, and I think we need some water flow studies. I think we need water retention studies. We need traffic studies. There's a lot going on with this neighborhood. It's 850 houses. That's a lot of houses up on a hill. It's a pretty high spot, so all the water runs downhill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henning. Anybody else wish to speak on this? If it's a public hearing, you can just get up and speak. If this is the topic that you want to speak on.
Mr. Mayor, I'm Jenny Kessler. I live in Shenandoah, and I agree with him completely. This is my first time at a public meeting, so, but there is a lot to do with 1100. The traffic is immense, and I believe that before you put in more houses, that we need to look into the road first, more than anything, because it's already a problem. I mean, there's just nothing else we can do with it until we do something with the road. And also, like, we got a certified letter in the mail. Most of our neighbors did not get one, only if you were within 200 feet, and it affects our entire neighborhood of Shenandoah. So I just would like you to reconsider and have a better thought of planning it out, because it affects all of our neighborhood. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this item?
Hi, my name is Beth Owen. I'm a class of Elgin High School, 2002. I too have concerns. It's just amazing to see how much the town has changed in the last 40 years. And it's just like the concern about the water, the roads, the infrastructure, having 840 plus more homes right here without the roads and considering where the flooding is going to go really bothers me. And I think we could do better. We're not in a rush. People are going to come at some point, but we can do this smart.
Thank you.
Hello,
Hello.
I'm Tiffany Finley. I've been a resident for about 25 years now. I think that taking a look at how these PDDs are affecting more than just, I mean, obviously the roads, but how many trees are there going to be? Is it going to be this big concrete mass? These are things that don't just affect even just that neighborhood. It affects our whole community. And I just hate how crammed in we're letting all of these houses get and not taking the time to maybe reconsider some of the policies. I don't even know the right word, but you know, the saying, okay, if someone wants to come in, maybe we don't just let everyone come in willy-nilly, or maybe we need to look at the different policies that we have set forth in the lot size, in how many trees have to be there, parking spaces, all of these things, and definitely not letting them get away with not having the water studies, the traffic studies, all of that. There's no reason. They want to be here. Let's let them do, you know, the work to make sure that that it makes sense for our community for them to be here and makes our community better and not worse. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Janice Sharp, and I live in the Shenandoah subdivision, and I have many of the same concerns. It's hard to get my head around having that many homes in that small a space. The water, the roads, the schools. I mean, how many children are going to be in this area? I don't think that our schools can accommodate this many children. What's going to happen to that? How are we going to get up and down 1100 with that many more people in the area? I agree. I think this is too many houses in too small a space. And like this gentleman said, 5 feet between houses, that's unimaginable to me. And where is all the water and the flooding and the concrete? How is that going to be accommodated? And the fact that we live on the corner of 1100, and us and our next door neighbor were the only ones that got notices about this. I talked to some of my neighbors, and they were all shocked and very unhappy that they knew nothing about this. And I think this is very wrong, and I think that more people need to be informed about the plans for our community.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if that's the case, we'll move on to public hearing number 3. Public hearing on an ordinance to modify an existing planned development district, PDD, ordinance 2021-11-16-39, to add an educational use and change the certificate of convenience and necessity, CCN, for water service from Aqua Water Supply Corporation to the city of Elgin, located on a parcel of land known by the Travis County Appraisal District as parcel A39520. being more described in Exhibit A and providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances and resolutions. Anyone here to speak on that one? Okay, we'll move on. Next on the agenda is the public comment section. And I already explained the public comments. You have 3 minutes. Make sure you talk to the mayor, no derogatory terms, and stick to the subject that you've written on your public comment form. We'll start public comments with Grant Hennig.
I guess that's what happens, you sit in the front row. But I just want to say, this doesn't pertain to anything on the agenda item tonight, and agenda items tonight. I just want to, first of all, thank you, Mayor, for your service to the city. Your term is about up, and I'm very honored to call you my mayor. I think you've done an awesome job. I've actually personally witnessed you and your heart. You have a heart, and you truly care about this city. You truly love the citizens, and you truly want what's better for the city. I've witnessed you have conversations with groups you didn't want to have conversations with. I've witnessed you giving out sausage wraps after a horrible winter storm. I've witnessed you comfort my neighbor after his loss of a spouse. I've witnessed you talk to the media, if y'all didn't see it recently, on all 3 major channels, defending our city and showing that our city has a heart. I appreciate that. I've also witnessed, and well, I didn't witness it, but I was told, you talking to church leaders about how we feed the hungry in the city and how we find a new home for them. I appreciate that. And now I ask you as mayor and this council to direct your city government to develop a heart. I'm tired of this city being trashed in the media because of stuff the city has done. How they treated the residents is appalling. They always ask for direction. Staff asks for direction all the time. I wholeheartedly think that if this council and this mayor can direct our city government to lead with a heart and truly think about the people, not the business, the people that live here. We're all Elginites. We're all Elginites. New, you could be here 1 year or 2 years. You could graduate. We go Elgin 88, graduate 88. If we want to brag about when we graduated from here. But I'm saying we need to think about the people, not the business part of this. I know you are running the city, but consider the people, consider the hearts. I also want to do a shout out, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but Amy Miller is the jewel of the city, just so you know. And she should be the assistant manager, my assistant city manager. She should be raised up to that. She's amazing. She was on the media as well, defending the city. The city got great reviews after the tornado recovery, great press. People from all over the country were texting and calling me, did you see Elgin? Did you see Elgin? Are y'all okay? Great press. That's awesome. But then it was messed up by a letter sent to residents. And you know what the letter says. I'm not going to go into that. But I appreciate you. I thank you. And I do request that that directive be sent from this council and from you, Mayor, before you leave office, to lead with a heart and consider the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Chris Zielinski.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to talk about tonight about the letter I'm sure all of y'all are aware of that we received as a letter of demolish of our house. We were told it was a template error, which is understandable. As a professional organization, I feel city leaders higher up than just the inspector should have proofread this letter since it is a demolishment, taking away somebody's house. That was not done. I was given a second letter from the Director of Development Services, basically saying it was an error. Oh, it was this, it was just, to me, it was just crawfishing, basically, trying to get out of something. And today, we received another letter hand delivered to my wife, even though I had asked to get it here tonight when I showed up, so she wouldn't have to deal with the pain and stuff that she she is having stress over this. I'd like to ask you, Mr. Mayor, to please take a good look at all your city employees and everything. Somebody, some company, district, anything is failing to give you information. You didn't even know that we were part of the city when the tornado actually happened. Let's take a good look at everybody, please, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have several public comments that I'm going to read. And then we have several that signed up to speak on another item, and you'll get your chance when that item comes up. Okay, these are public comments that have been emailed in, which we are currently accepting, but we're only for a short period will we be accepting the email comments. Mayor Ramirez, I have a public comment to add to tonight's meeting in regards to our park improvements. It would be great to see the parks continue to improve to keep up with city growth. New entrance and parking lot at Thomas Park, new restrooms at Elgin Memorial and Stage, playground, Wi-Fi, events, lawn, and splash pad at Veterans Park would all be welcome upgrades. Heather McLean. Dear Mayor Ramirez, my husband and I recently moved to Elgin in December to be closer to our daughter and her family. We're looking forward to being involved in Elgin's growth. We are attending an event for our grandchildren this evening, cannot attend tonight's city council meeting. We as grandparents support improving our park system in Elgin. Elgin appears to be growing at a fast pace, and having improved park space and areas to enjoy with our family is of great importance to us. Thank you for taking the time to read this. We love where we live. Elizabeth and John Hazlitt. Dear Mayor Ramirez, I'm currently hosting the PTA event at Niding Elementary. This evening, I'm not able to attend tonight's city council meeting. I fully support improving our park system in Elgin. As a mom with children in elementary school and intermediate school, and as a member of both their PTAs and Cub Scouts, I see the lack of facilities that we could be offering our children. We need to invest and create these spaces now. I'm extremely hopeful to see that parks across the city are receiving upgrades they need. Thomas Park, new entrance and parking lot, Elgin Memorial, new restroom, and Veterans, stage, playground, Wi-Fi, events, and splash pad. Our parks are an integral part of creating spaces for our children to grow, becoming good citizens and stewards of Elgin. Morgan Louvier. Dear Mayor Ramirez, the parks are an essential part of the amenities in Elgin. I have benefited tremendously from improvements during the 12 years I have lived in Elgin, in which I have two daughters who love their local parks. Now our city is growing rapidly, and we need to invest in more improvements to meet the demands of our growing populace. I am thrilled that the following upgrades are being considered. Thomas Park, new entrance and parking lot. Elgin Memorial, new restrooms. Veterans Park, this is the heart of our small town. Since we have so many events here, there should be a play set and splash pad where the kids can play while the adults shop at the market or listen to live music. The lawn is getting more and more use, and we want to keep it green and gorgeous. Having Wi-Fi would be a bonus, especially for our residents that lack access. Our parks are central for the building the community that makes our city amazing and unique. Thanks, Sarah Gray. Dear Mayor Ramirez, I regret I cannot appear before you tonight. Advocacy Outreach has provided family literary services to Elgin for nearly 30 years. During the past 2 years of our pandemic, our program would not have survived if we had not had the support of Elgin Recreation Center and Elgin City Parks. We were able to conduct outdoor classes and use nature as a theme to teach language and help children develop their observation and motor skills. Unfortunately, weather interrupted many of our sessions. The outdoor classroom proposed for Veterans Park will allow us to conduct classes beneath a protected cover. The location is ideal, and the special features, as well as tables and seating for literacy or art activities, will create a space where learning is enjoyable and accessible. A playscape that references Elgin Railroad history will be a gateway to the history discussions and is convenient to the Elgin History Museum. In addition to the family literacy program, the expansion of Veterans Park will be a benefit to other clients of Advocacy Outreach, as well as to the people who live on the south side of town. Dozens of people every week use the community center provided by Advocacy Outreach. Advocacy Outreach staff appreciated the opportunity to participate in the planning process through surveys, individual consultations, and focus groups for this project. We support the proposed plan and will help in any way that we can to assist you to bring it to fruition. That's Beth Rawlinson. Dear Mayor Ramirez, I wanted to send you an email about my support for this week's city council meeting, agenda item 8.1 regarding Veterans Memorial Park. It is with great enthusiasm I support agenda item 8.1 regarding the certificate of obligation to support work at Thomas Park, Elgin Memorial Park, and the Veterans Memorial Park expansion. For over a decade, I have been actively involved in the vision the community created for Veterans Memorial Park, from the initial community input sessions to the Sustainable Places Grant in 2012 to countless community input sessions over the past decade regarding the expansion of Veterans Memorial Park. I wholeheartedly support this agenda item. I am proud of the leadership of all the city council members from 2012 through 2022 for leading this effort to bring exceptional parks and open spaces to our community. Parks are the heart of every community, providing much-needed space for health and wellness, respite, play, and engagement to all members of our community. Thank you for your continued service to our city and for supporting projects like these that positively impact everyone. Molly Alexander. The last one here, dear Mayor Ramirez, I'm out of town, so I'm not able to attend tonight's city council meeting. I wholeheartedly support improving our park system in Elgin. As a mother, we currently use the parks weekly, and as our son grows, we'll be using them even more. Our city is growing rapidly, and now is the time to invest. I'm happy to see that parks across the city are receiving upgrades. Thomas Park, new entrance and parking lot. Elgin Memorial, new restrooms. And Veterans, stage, playground, Wi-Fi, events, lawn, and splash pad. Our parks are an integral part of our community, and their improvements support our quality of life. Joy Kasnowski. So those are all public comments that were emailed in. Okay, that concludes the public comments. We'll start now with our presentation, Proclamation, April as Fair Housing Month. I'm going to read this. Jennifer, is there anyone here to accept this tonight? Okay. Okay, Proclamation, April as Fair Housing Month. Whereas Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, as amended, prohibits discrimination in housing and declares it a national policy to provide within constitutional limits for fair housing in the United States. And whereas the principle of fair housing is not only national law and national policy, but a fundamental human concept, an entitlement for all Americans. And whereas the National Fair Housing Law during the month of April provides an opportunity for all Americans to recognize that complete success in the goal of equal housing opportunity can only be accomplished with the help and cooperation of all Americans. Now therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Elgin, Texas, do proclaim April as Fair Housing Month in the City of Elgin, and do hereby urge all the citizens of this locality to become aware of and support the Fair Housing Law, passed and adopted by the City Council of the City of Elgin, Bastrop County, State of Texas on April 5th, 2022, and approved by Ramirez Mayor. So there's the Fair Housing Act. Did y'all know the mayor has to read so much?
Yes. And you do it without glasses, that's great.
Okay. We're going to move on in our agenda. The next item is item number 8, City Manager's Report. And there's several people that have signed up to speak with that. The first one I have here is Tiffany. Yes. Oh, yeah, let's hear the presentation, then we'll be able to speak.
Go online. Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we're here to provide a report on, final report before we proceed with the improvements projects for all 3 of our major parks here in town. That's good. For all 3 of our major parks here in town that were approved and funded in the certificates of obligation we issued last year. The staff has gone through a lengthy process to share these plans and this information. The project plans started with our Parks Master Plan that Council received earlier this year. But we're very excited tonight to share with the Council the plans for the CO projects before we move forward with construction. So with that, she's going to run through the details for you.
Good evening, council, our mayor and city manager, and all our guests. It's good to see everybody tonight. This is a pretty exciting evening for certainly for us as staff, and I believe for our community as a whole. This is an opportunity for us to reflect on the importance of planning, but also the importance of implementation. And so in 2012, the city of Elgin, so that's 10 years ago, the city of Elgin was competitively competed to be a part of the Sustainable Places grant process. And that was a little over a year of a comprehensive planning effort that focused on the downtown district and looked at what would the community like to see in the future to help that downtown area and the community as a whole thrive and be more successful as we continue to grow. There were a number of recommendations in that plan that City Council adopted. And so on your part, many councils ago, that in that 10-year period, that plan was put into place, and then there were very thoughtful and strategic opportunities on the part of City Council to begin implementing that plan. One of the items was a recommendation to acquire all of the property that Union Pacific owned on both sides of the railroad tracks downtown. And other recommendations in the plan addressed the community overall. Now, you fast forward, and in 2020, in the midst of a pandemic, our community actively participated in and successfully developed an open space master parks plan. That's a difficult project even in the best of times, but it's a particularly challenging project during a pandemic. In addition to that, that parks plan was developed completely in-house by our staff and our community. Most communities hire a consultant at a fairly hefty price to put that type of plan together. So I do want to take another opportunity to thank Elizabeth Marzek, our Parks and Rec Program Manager, her Parks and Recreation Advisory Boards over a 2-year period for all of the work that they did putting that plan together. But in that plan, in this community, saying in spite of a pandemic that they wanted to be a part of deciding where we would be in the future for our parks program, we had fantastic participation. Online surveys, we did focus groups as we started to come out of the pandemic. We did a lot of face covering meetings, a lot of outside meetings at parks, and really secured a tremendous amount of public input. And then you adopted that master plan last year. That master plan fully informed, along with the Sustainable Places plan, what you're going to see tonight. So first up, we have Thomas Memorial Park. And Thomas is a really beautiful park on the southeast side of Elgin. It is near Booker T. Washington Elementary School. And I point that out because despite the fact that it has a lot of great amenities like disc golf and basketball and pavilions and a baseball field, it is often primarily used by the neighborhood or those specialty things like going to play baseball. It is a little bit hard to find. And so we wanted to kind of review where it is and all the cool amenities that it has. On its part, it has a limited entrance off of Madison Street. So in this picture, you can see the existing park, you can see the overall quarter-mile walking trail that goes around the baseball field and the playground. And if we look at the next picture, we can see what the bond is going to help fund. So in that lot that the city owns that fronts Madison Street, the main entrance now is at Hall and Madison. We are able to create an additional entrance and parking area and a path that you would be able to use to access the park overall. There will also be seating in this area, so you might just come to the park and just use this part of it, or you might be headed to, again, a baseball game or a cookout with a family, or to use the pavilions that are in the main park area. So this is going to increase access to the park. We're also going to be doing a signage program to provide directional signage from downtown and BTW, from Brenham and MLK, to help the community overall be more able to find Thomas Park and take advantage of all the amenities that it offers. Our next one is Elgin Memorial Park. Now, Elgin Memorial Park, I think an awful lot of people refer to it as either Memorial or the Tennis Court Park. This is one of our oldest parks in the community. And the restroom facilities in this park, despite the fact that it's huge and it hosts events during the year, such as our Western Days Festival, the restrooms have been closed since the pandemic. Initially, they were closed because of the pandemic, but ultimately we continued to keep them closed because of the physical condition of them. And luckily, City Council saw in that Parks and Recreation Plan where there were recommendations for better access to the parks, for better restroom facilities. This was one of the priorities that you decided to address with the COs. And so the new restroom building will be located very close to the original spot. We've already torn down the old ones. This new restroom building is going to be adjacent to the middle parking lot. So it's in the same area as the pavilion. And it's essentially 4 individual restrooms that all access from the exterior, and then an outside sink, water fountain, and water bottle refill station. And so again, on the part of the Parks Plan, this is the type of restroom that is recommended for all parks moving forward, to have this type of general access to sinks and fountains, but then also to have the privacy of individual stalls. And then we have Veterans Memorial Park. Now, for Veterans Memorial Park, we go back to that Sustainable Places Plan that was adopted in 2012. So for this map, we're showing you how the overall park, the original park is just one block. It sits from Main to Avenue C. It's adjacent to our Visitor Center and Chamber of Commerce. And that's a park that was built in the 1920s. It was a ladies' civic club project, and they were at the time trying to beautify a part of the downtown area that was it was a lumber yard. And when you read the newspaper articles about setting up that park in the 20s, they talk about the rats and the vermin that lived in the lumber yard and how that they wanted to have a beautiful place to be able to hang out downtown. On our part, the property that the city of Elgin acquired, we already owned the Union Depot Museum and its parking lot that's at the top right there, but we acquired everything from Main Street to Avenue A. And the proposal tonight, the extensive park plan information looks at those pieces that are labeled A, B, C, and D. The rail line is owned by Capital Metro, and that is still in the long-term regional transportation plans to bring passenger service to the community at some point. That's in both the 2040 plan for Capital Metro and for Campo. But on our part, we have the opportunity to build the park space and the overall public space around it. So in that Sustainable Places Plan, when it recommended to acquire the property, it also very specifically recommended that that be developed as park space and to provide public amenities for the community. In this slide, we're showing you where the new sidewalks are going to be built that are going to serve the community overall and access throughout the community, but are going to be providing connectivity throughout the park. So this is the $500,000 Texas Capital Fund grant that we have. The construction for this component starts this month in April. And so where you see the red, we have a connecting piece on Avenue C to connect to the new CART station. And then we continue down Central Avenue, Avenue A, Depot Street, where we connect to existing sidewalk on Depot and do a cross piece on Avenue B and Avenue C. And look at our next one. And so you will have, with those sidewalks, complete connectivity from North Main Street to Avenue A, coming back to Main Street. And then you have sidewalks that connect you to ultimately Booker T. Washington Elementary School with our second Safe Routes to School project and Thomas Park. You'll be connected to the Bluebonnet Medical Facility and Elgin Elementary. You could potentially walk from these new sidewalks to Elgin Middle School, Elgin High School, Austin Community College, and all the associated neighborhoods along the way. So this is a last significant piece of sidewalk connectivity for our community. As we look at the park specifically, we are doing some connectivity from the Depot Museum to the expanded park. And, yeah, that's okay. We want you to see these beautiful pictures in just a minute. So Veterans Park stays largely the same with additional trees to again create more connectivity between the museum, Veterans Memorial Park, the original piece, and then the expansion goes the next 2 blocks. So in the first block A, you have the train-themed playscape that several comments referred to, with a bonded rubber mulch surface and additional seating and elements for play. The middle is where there is the splash pad, stage, covered stage, and outdoor classroom with the Wi-Fi that's funded through the T-Mobile grant we received last year. And then we have more seating for gathering and interactive work with the overall park space. In the next one, we can give you the view for, there's the train. And so the picture in the top right is literally a train from the 1871. We had a train just like this that was the first train to come through on the way to Austin. And this is Compan's train that will be tweaked even more to look even more specifically like the Elgin train. It is a huge train playscape, including really large enough for adults to play on it as long as you don't get stuck, and is a truly interactive piece for the kids. The splash pad feature will be what's called a Fountain Plaza splash pad. We're trying to do as much flexibility and multi-use as possible throughout all of the park developments. So in this case, that's part of that plaza for the stage and the outdoor classroom. So there will be times, for example, if we're having music in the park or a performance where we wouldn't be running the splash pad. And then obviously there'd be plenty of times when it was a splash-oriented feature.
But we can't afford the splash pad in this first phase.
Right, we're gonna talk about the money next.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so as we look at this overall, that's the intensive deep look at Block A, because that's the first phase. Block B is a covered pavilion area that can serve for parking, for multi-purpose events, for market pop-ups. Block C is a skate park. This was one of the most requested items in the Open Space Master Parks Plan. And that skate park is thoughtfully designed from beginning to intermediate to advanced skill levels. So it's not really tied to your age, but it's tied to you and the skill level you have for the wheels that you're using. And it is not intended to be just for skateboards. We're actually having a huge response to skating in this community right now. As we speak, there's a group of well over 20 kids and adults behind the rec center with all sorts of wheels, rollerblades, roller skates, skateboards, etc., all enjoying themselves in anticipation of this future investment. And then Block D is designated for a dog park area separated for large and small dogs, and a nature play area that flows back into the first block with a nature play area and then the seating. Avenue B gets closed to vehicular traffic, and it's only pedestrians that will be crossing in that section on Depot Street from Block A to Block D. And it becomes overall an entire destination park area for the whole community. There is fencing along the right-of-way with the railroad, and there, in the future, will all only be crossing at Avenue A, B, or C. Now, when we talk about the funding for this piece, we have $150,000 for the Thomas Park improvements, $160,000 for the Elgin Memorial Park restrooms, and $600,000 for the Veterans Park improvements. And in Veterans Park, that is enough funding to be able to do the train playscape, the bonded rubber mulch surfacing, the fencing that's required, trees, and an overall broad conversion of that block. It does not include funding for the splash pad specifically and that overall stage area. The other elements that we've talked about tonight in this park expansion also remain to be funded. On our part, we have several grant applications in the works starting this month and through the early summer, one of which is with Bastrop County. And we are hopeful that we will be successful with those and additional monetary support to help the park expansion in Veterans Park come to fruition more quickly. But ultimately, all the pieces happen as the funding becomes available for them.
We believe we can do Block A as shown here without the splash pad, with the 600,000, with the money from the CO, so, okay. Let's talk a little bit too about, so the funding situation for council is, as we've shown. The exciting part about this is that we're ready to invest almost $1 million in our parks, our 3 major parks here in the city, and as Amy said, that's very exciting. I'd venture to say that's the largest single investment from city tax dollars that the city of Elgin has ever made in their park system at one time. So we're very much excited about our funding to do that. As Amy said, we've still got a lot of work to do on Veterans Park down the road, but this plan is all predicated on this, as she stated. This is just the first step to realizing that long-term dream of what we can have downtown in Veterans Park. The Elgin Memorial Park restrooms, we pretty much have that project down to where we believe that funding is adequate for that project, and we will be doing final plans and final bids soon, but we believe that funding is sufficient. What's going to be kind of unique about the Thomas Park project is this parking lot, and it'll probably end up being a combination of work that we can do with city forces combined with hiring outside contractors. So we believe this parking lot is probably not, it's probably a small enough job where we won't really get competitive bids. So our plan is basically to, as we've had great success with before, once we get the County Line Road contractor on site and working, that we'll try to get a good competitive bid from them to build that parking lot. The other amenities planned for this first phase in Thomas Park, then frankly we'll do as much of that work as we can with city forces and our resources, but we want to make it clear that our commitment is to continue to make improvements in Thomas Park until we've invested the whole $150,000 that we've committed there. So there's a good possibility. We believe, again, that what we presented tonight we can get done for the funding that the council's already approved in the COs. But we're hopeful that, as Amy said, with other resources that we continue to get, we're hoping we can take further steps in all these parks than even what we're showing tonight. But again, a great presentation. This is a result of a lot of work, a lot of input from the general public. And we're requesting the council's endorsement of these plans to allow us to move forward to construction. Anything else, Amy, that you wanted to say? Thank you. Well, Amy, wait a minute, in case there's any questions from council. Do you want to take questions now, Mayor, or do comments for now?
Let's do the comments. And I did want to say, council, this is one of the things that I'm most proud of that we worked on in the past couple of years, because this is gonna be good for so many Elginites for so long. So I echo the city manager and Amy and everyone else in saying that I'm very proud to be associated with this particular improvements in Elgin. So we'll start our public comments with Tiffany. Same rules apply.
Hello, me again. So not only have I lived here for over 25 years, I have 2 children here. Hopefully I'll have grandchildren soon. I'm also on the Parks Board, helped work on this master plan, which I know it's been said before, but I want to reiterate that we had so much input from the community on this. We had emails, we had them filling out surveys online, we were handing out surveys to everyone, and it was very clear these are the things that the community wanted at large. There's been a lot of talk of how fast we're growing, all of the houses that are coming, and we need infrastructure, and here we are. Here it is. we have parks. We're growing our parks for all of these people that are coming. And it's just really important that we have something, some nice new improvements, so the people are wanting to stay in our community and not go out and try to find something. That we're keeping our community together. I volunteer at a lot of the parks activities and events. And it is the coolest thing to see, I mean, we're a community at large, but we have a lot of little communities within our community. And all of those little communities come together with those parks events. And it's kind of a lot more of what our community needs right now with how divided we can be on some things. So to improve these parks and to have more of the community coming together is very important right now and moving forward when we grow. Make sure I hit everything. Yeah, I think that's it. As you can see, everyone that emailed, not everyone can make it here. Everyone that filled out any of those forms online that helped us make this master plan, that helped us make these plans for this park. They are all in favor of this, and I hope that you will take that all to account.
And that reminds me, I sat here and congratulated us on what a good job that we've done and everything, but I didn't mention the Parks Director, I didn't mention the Parks Board, I didn't mention all the input from the citizens who made it possible for us to make a decision. So let me say that, I'm sorry I didn't mention it at first. Okay, next is Donna.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to simply urge you to approve the site plan for Veterans Park and the improvements for other parks. Our city parks have never looked as good as they look now. In the past few years, I've noticed each year they grow more beautiful. And that's because we have a council who supports our parks and a staff that goes out of their way to make things happen. As beautiful as our parks are, there is still something lacking. We need more for our citizens, especially our youth. Our little ones have very little to do in Elgin. When I first looked at this plan, I immediately knew that this was perfect, that it had something for everyone, from the skate park and splash pad to the dog park, to the benches and picnic area. This park has been well thought out. This plan's not set in stone, but it's certainly a great start. It took many years for a previous council to be able to purchase the property from the railroad. Now it's time for this council to take the next step and put this plan into action. The hard work that the Main Street Board, the Parks Board, the Elgin Chamber of Commerce, and many individuals and organizations have put in to revive our downtown will be rewarded by the expansion of Veterans Park. Our children need this. Our older generations need this. We all need something positive to look forward to and to enjoy and be proud of. Let's keep improving our parks. Our parks and sidewalks are being used more than ever. I see people walking on the city sidewalks day and night. The playscape, the basketball courts, the pavilion are used daily. We need something to bring us together. Parks can help do that. They are part of the heart and the soul of this city. Thank you.
Barbara?
My name is Barbara Bogart, and I'm here on behalf of Advocacy Outreach. And Mayor Ramirez, thank you very much. You've already read Beth's letter. The only thing I want to add to that is to thank Elizabeth Marsick, the Parks and Recreation Department, and you guys for helping Advocacy get through the COVID years. They prepared, we used Thomas Park, Memorial Park, and the Veterans Park for the literacy programs, and we're able to continue and keep people out and keep the kids out, except for the weather. So we're very much asking you to support this project and looking forward to the use of an outdoor classroom for lots of purposes. So thanks for including us in the process, and thanks for sharing your departments to help us keep going. We really appreciate your service. Thank you.
Gina?
Good evening. I'm Gina Carter, and I'm representing our Chamber of Commerce tonight. And on behalf of our 300-plus chamber members, we offer our support of this project as well. We, of course, are supportive of all parks, but specifically, we do offer our support of the expansion of this project at Veterans Park. Many of our chamber members and our business owners have been involved in the planning of this for years. Since 2012, we've been talking about this. And so at this time, we would just really encourage the council to take the next step to get additional funding. We're excited to hear that there is additional funding opportunities from some different grants that are available. And so we encourage our council to do what needs to be done to get those grants filed, and we can make this a successful park and complete this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Krista?
Krista is a yoga dance teacher at our rec center and wasn't able to stay. She is on the Main Street board, and she was going to share comments in support of the project and the extensive cooperative planning efforts that have happened.
Teresa?
To the mayor and city council, to the city manager. My name is Teresa McShann, and I live at 501 South Main, Elgin, Texas. I've been here all my life, and I'm here representing the Elgin Main Street Board tonight as the president. So my focus tonight is on Veterans Park and the need to proceed with the current park plans without delay. We've all said that it's been going on since 2012. This is 2022, so I think it's about time that we really get started on this. Discussion regarding the park began years ago, and there has been numerous variations discussed with the Main Street Board, Parks and Rec, Historic Review Board, and the members of the community. We've stated already that there's been a lot of communication with the community, so we know what they want. This plan represents the community, and I believe that the current plans are doable. As the Main Street president, it has been my focus to ensure that our downtown remains viable and a destination spot that not only increases tourism, but provides a mechanism to join our community together as the place for our families to go and to tell our friends about. Elgin, come downtown because it's the place to be. I respectfully ask that you consider the plans before you tonight and that you give us all your support and get started. Thank you.
I didn't actually leave anyone out, did I, that turned in a public comment form for this? Okay. Thank you all for your comments. Council, is there anything that you wish to say or discuss or ask concerning this?
It's a long time coming.
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment as well. I'd like to also thank the Parks Board, Michael Gonzalez as well and his crew. I know for a long time, I certainly have been on council long enough to see just how the parks have come together. I agree, they're beautiful. I think that our approach, what we've talked about and how to spend the money, we have a nice balanced approach. One of the things that I often hear is that certain parks typically get certain kinds of attention, and I think that that's probably far from the truth. I think what we've seen with the Parks Board especially is that there's been special care and attention to find a balance to ensure that every park is addressed in some way or another. I can probably speak of 5 different things in the last 5 or 6 years that have been improvements to Thomas Park especially, and so it's nice to see that park, even though at times it's hidden, it is my neighborhood park, but we continue to find ways to improve, and we have that particular park on the 5-year capital plan, as well as we have connecting sidewalks coming soon. So all to say is that there's plenty happening across all of the parks, and I encourage all to continue to be involved, engaged, to inform how we want our parks over time, and also to especially take care of our parks. I've seen my neighborhood park go through a couple of challenging times, but I think that it's probably up to us to keep our neighborhood parks as safe and as enjoyable as possible. Just wanted to share that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I'd just like to say that, thanks to the Parks Board and staff and, for all the thought and care that they put into putting this together. I think this is just an investment in a long future for Elgin. When you go to a town, the heartbeat of that town is usually the parks. And a lot of them have been there for many, many years. And I was surprised that, a group of ladies in the 1920s put together the park down there, and it is still such a vibrant part of the community, and we have an opportunity to extend that here. And so it's just a great opportunity for us. I'm excited to be a part of it.
Mayor, I wanted to add one thing here that we didn't talk about earlier, but it just adds to the excitement of the situation that at our next meeting, the council will be approving the schematic plans for the new police station, which will occur right along here on Depot, right across the street from the park improvements that we're starting on. And the rehabilitation of the Poth building right here on the corner is underway as we speak. So it's not only this park, due to the funding provided by the CO, it's not only this section of the park where construction will begin immediately, but construction's on tap for the new police station and the expansion of that for new sidewalks, as Amy said. So you're going to see this whole block of downtown Elgin be quickly under construction in the next year and be a great addition, quality addition to the town. But I want to make sure we noted that Amy, the Main Street Board, is engaged on the design of the police station, so it will accommodate this park improvement project that we're making too. So it's even though this project is exciting, it's just one we're getting started on.
So you're saying we're going to have the police right across the street to make sure the kids behave?
Yes.
That's right.
Well, and to make sure that the police officers have great health, wellness, and mental relief benefits for themselves. Another thing that bears pointing out, and I think Forrest was going to mention this as well, but as our sesquicentennial year, these projects are legacy projects as we look to celebrating 150 years and what the next 50 or the next 150 years will bring us. And as those investments were made in the 20s, this is an opportunity for us to be investing in that future tied to the sesquicentennial and celebrating that 150-year legacy for us. And in particular, the park expansion projects really fill that role.
And just to piggyback on that, as we have been planning, the committee has making plans for the celebration, we've had people say, how can we help to contribute to the plans? And we said, well, the city is taking care of the events, but everybody on the committee is really excited about the parks. And so we have several opportunities to raise some funds to help support parks projects. And you'll be hearing more about those as time goes on, but that's our focus. Everybody is just on board with that.
Anyone else? It's your opportunity if you want to say anything about this particular CO. Tom, did you have anything to say?
No, we just request a motion from the council to endorse this plan and authorize the staff moving forward as we've presented this evening.
I'll entertain a motion.
I so move, Mayor.
Second.
So a motion has been made by Councilmember Dennis, seconded by Councilmember Ivins, or Mayor Pro Tem Brasher. Mayor Pro Tem Brasher, you got this. To continue on with, as discussed, the CO projects concerning the three different parks. We'll start the vote with Councilmember Dennis.
Dennis, yes.
Frazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Tom, do you have anything to add on item number 2 there?
I don't, unless there's any questions for me.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes non-controversial routine items that are considered to be self-explanatory by the city council and will be enacted with one motion, 1 second, and 1 vote. Any member of the council may pull any item from the consent agenda in order that the city council discuss and act upon it individually as part of the regular agenda. This council meeting, we only have one item under the consent agenda, and that's the city council regular meetings from the last meeting. Do we have anything we want to change on that? If not, I'll accept a motion to pass the consent agenda as discussed.
So moved.
Second.
So motion has been made by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher, seconded by Councilmember Gibson to approve the consent agenda. And we'll start the vote with Mayor Pro Tem Brasher.
Frazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes.
yes.
Gibson, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Now we're going on to new business. Item number 1 under new business, a resolution of the city of Elgin, Texas, authorizing the mayor to execute the real estate contract County Line Road, Parcel 6 with Betty and/or Don Lundgren in support of the County Line Road Phase 1 project and making certain findings related thereto. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. This is items 1 and 2 on the agenda are related items that, again, represent another very exciting project that with tonight's action by council will give us the final authorization we need to move forward now with construction. County Line Road Phase 1 is a complete reconstruction of County Line Road from FM 1100 to the northern city limits line. This will be a 5-lane divided roadway with 2 travel lanes on both sides, sidewalks, dramatically improved drainage in that area that is responsive to the growth that we're seeing along there. As we've discussed before, all of the developments that are shown on this map are all contributing, except for the high school, contributing to the cost for the reconstruction of the road and will eventually reimburse the city for all costs associated with the construction of this road. But in order for us to begin construction and have it built before all the houses get built, we're funding this project through proceeds from the certificates of obligation. We unfortunately took a little step back at our last meeting. We had 6 properties that we needed to acquire right-of-way from to have the adequate right-of-way to build this widened and vastly improved roadway. We had most of that right-of-way needs to come off the east side of County Line Road and the area shown. It amounts to about a 25-foot wide strip in the front of these properties, and right-of-way acquisition is always a little bit of a challenge, but generally we people reach mutual agreement on how to properly compensate those property owners and the improvements they'll gain in the process. At our last meeting, the council had approved 3 of the purchase agreements that we had negotiated. We still had 2 at that time that we hadn't reached agreement with the property owner about. We have since done that with both property owners. Unfortunately, at our last meeting, this is where the 2 different parcels are located. I'll come back to that if we need to. Unfortunately, at our last council meeting, an individual said on the public record that the city was cheating one of the property owners out there, and frankly I was a little surprised that the conversation went deep into what amounts to, I consider, a private business deal between the property owner and the city. So, but we couldn't let it go unchallenged that we were treating a longtime property owner unfairly or inappropriately. So the attorney representing that property owner and the property owner herself have provided these letters to provide council all the assurance that they should need to know that the city negotiated in good faith and that we reached a mutually acceptable offer on this property. So we didn't have to do this with any of the other acquisitions. But again, I didn't think it was acceptable for the city to let that accusation go unresponded to. So this first item on the agenda is, I'll back up here a little bit, is for Parcel 6. It's the largest parcel. It's at the far end of the County Line Road project, as you can see there, number 6. Have negotiated an acceptable price of $100,000 for that property. I'll just keep going on number 2 too, Mayor. This is Parcel 2, is owned by Maria Guerrero. That too was an acquisition we did not have negotiated at our last meeting, but I'm pleased to say that we have reached a mutual agreeable price with Ms. Guerrero too. We haven't received the signed purchase agreement, but she's agreed in writing to the price as shown here. So in the end, the right-of-way acquisition cost the city just over $200,000. All of the property owners have accepted the negotiated price. The exciting thing about this is that we're now ready with this action and approval tonight and the final execution of these purchase agreements. We're ready to move forward immediately with moving the utility poles and bidding the project. So it's another project that's been a long time coming, another project that we've, frankly, we're behind schedule and probably getting started, but hopefully this will help us catch up. And again, I might just share, since I think we might have people here tonight that don't normally come, so we can fill in that long term, the city has already secured a sizable grant to rebuild what we were calling Phase 2 of County Line Road Reconstruction, which will rebuild County Line Road in the same fashion from the intersection at 290 all the way to Niding Elementary. And TxDOT already has a plan that's on their books to straighten out the curve and improve FM 1100, which is the improvement of that road will be in their jurisdiction. So this, like the park plan, is a first step, but it's a part of a long-term planning process to address increased traffic in this side of town. So I'd be glad to talk about either one of those agreements, Mayor, if there are any specific questions.
I'm very pleased that we were able to reach agreements with those two, that the staff was able to work with the property owners and not have to use any other procedure. So I'm very pleased to see that. Council, do you have any questions or comments on item number 1 or number 2 under new business? We'll do each as a separate vote because that's how they're listed, but do you have any comments on items number 1 or 2? Yes.
I just have comments, seeing, with this, we're ready to move forward. Is there a time frame for the public hearing on County Line Road?
We just haven't got that scheduled. Like I said, frankly, we just found out that, as you know, we talked about before, we didn't think it was appropriate to talk specifically about the project until we had all the property. So it was late in the week that we were able to secure the other agreement. Given where we've been, I'd rather wait till I get the purchase agreement in hand. But then as soon as we can, we've promised the school board a presentation, and we'll be doing that, and then we'll set the public meeting as soon as we can around that time frame.
Okay, because I'm hearing from a lot of constituents, especially like the cut through from the school, how that's gonna be handled with the new road, parking, things of that nature.
We'll have an opportunity to take all those comments.
Perfect, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, if not, I'll accept a motion to pass item number 1 of the new business as read and discussed.
So moved.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay. motion made by Councilmember Ibis, seconded by Councilmember Dennis to pass item number 1 as read and discussed under new business. We'll start the vote. Councilmember Ibis.
Ibis, yes.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Okay, thank you, Council. Motion passes unanimously. Let's go straight on to number 2. Accept a motion.
So moved, Mayor.
I'll second.
Okay, so, motion has been made by Councilmember Dennis, seconded by Councilmember Ibis to approve item number 2 as read and discussed. We'll start the vote with Councilmember Dennis.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Council.
Mayor, can I, just before you go on to the next one, I just wanted to mention that we, as we talked about and has been discussed this evening, I know part of this for us, particularly dealing with some of the comments received at the last meeting, this was a little difficult process, but it's important to note that what we went through here was a very routine process for a growing community, and for all the discussion we had tonight about the need to improve roads. The project that I mentioned earlier, the grant project that involves the Phase 2 of County Line Road and Kennedy Street are clearly going to require significant right-of-way acquisitions for us. So I'm just saying, this isn't the only time we're going to go through this process. Hopefully we can reach mutual agreement like we did in this case with everybody, but it is a necessary evil of a growing community. So, thank you.
Okay. We'll go on to item number 3 under new business, an ordinance to modify an existing planned development district, PDD ordinance 2021-11-16-39, to add an educational use and change the certificate of convenience and necessity CCN for water service from Aqua Water Supply Corporation to the city of Elgin located on a parcel of land known by the Travis County Appraisal District as parcel 839520, being more described in Exhibit A, and providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances and resolutions.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, the remaining items on the agenda have to do with the 3 different PDD projects that we had the public hearings on earlier this evening. I just wanted to offer a couple of comments in general because I think, again, I think communication and understanding the process is important as we move forward. And the first speaker tonight made some erroneous comments that I think were misleading for everybody. I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. Planned development district zoning is actually the preferred methodology, I think, from a growth and development standpoint for any community. Standard zoning means you establish a category, and the builder or developer can build anything they want as long as it falls into those categories. So that's why I think we all see at times, how did that happen? How did that get built here? It's just because that fit that zoning category, and the owner, developer, builder has no obligation to tell the city specifically what they're building. They have a property right. They get to build whatever fits those categories. The planned development district concept is one where the city makes a very specific development agreement with that developer for that project. So the number of the things that we talked about tonight, landscaping, parks, roadway width, various improvements and amenities you're going to see out in this County Line Road area that go way beyond anything that's ever been built in the city to this point. They help us develop a public park system that existing taxpayers won't have to pay for. But part of the deal, part of the agreement is the city has to incentivize a part of the agreement to make it worth the developer's time. So typically what we've seen in recent years is smaller lots. Clearly that's what's selling. I don't have to tell anybody that lives in town to know the houses are selling here on smaller lots. The builders believe that's what the market will bear in Elgin, so that's typically what they're pushing for. So it's important to understand as we look at these PDDs, we need to look at them as a deal as a whole. What we talk about on the council level is what are the things we're getting and what are the things we're giving, like you have in any business deal. But the other part about PDD is a development agreement that you know today, this is exactly what that development's gonna look like when it gets built, whether it gets built now or 10 years from now, which is a whole different advantage for the city than just to simply apply zoning and it's up to the developer, they can build what they want in that category. And the other part about all the projects, we need to understand that the 3 projects we're gonna talk about tonight, they're in the city limits. They already have zoning. Those property owners have a vested right to build something on that property. So as we assess these deals, I just think it's important to really understand what the city is gaining in the process that we wouldn't otherwise get if the developer just had straightforward single-family zoning. And I also want to make clear that it's incorrect to suggest that there's been no planning to go in. The city is constantly planning for utilities, constantly making water plans, constantly making transportation plans. That's exactly how we're getting a $5 million road built by the developers on County Line Road, where the city isn't gonna, city taxpayers that live here now aren't gonna pay a penny for that road in the long run. We're very satisfied with that system. We continue to grow our water system and manage it better. And certainly our sewer system is really the main thing all developers want. They can't get sewer anyplace else. So I don't want anybody to think we've gone about this haphazardly. We've taken all these things into account. And I do want to say too, there is an issue, again, that we continue to deal with. The council had this last time of, there's obviously a number of things that were constructed in the city many years ago that met the standards at that time, but certainly wouldn't be approved today. And the Shenandoah Park, as we call it, over in that Shenandoah neighborhood, is a clear example of that. The park is literally located in a floodplain. It's intended to flood. So when it floods over there, it's doing what it's supposed to do. We certainly wouldn't allow that now, and after all cities figured out that's what developers were doing, was giving you the floodplain for the parkland. We changed those rules, and the city now dictates where the parkland is and not. But that's just a reality of a situation in that neighborhood that's going to be very difficult and very expensive for the taxpayers now to fix. It doesn't mean it's not possible, but again, I think that some of the conversation we've heard is just because it floods over in that area, frankly, that doesn't mean something was done wrong, built wrong, or designed wrong. We're trying to make those improvements as we go, but when we have situations like that, it's really hard to undo things that probably could have done better in the past. So I just wanted to provide those comments, thank you, Mayor, that apply to all the PDDs, but it's still, that doesn't mean we still don't need to look at each one individually. This first PDD is actually, this first item on the agenda is actually, as stated, a modification for the Stone Creek Ranch PDD. This is a multifamily development that is going in adjacent to the high school campus. Again, this is a prime example of how PD development works. This will bring in a completely different housing product than what standard multifamily or single-family zoning would bring to the city. In exchange for that, we're getting a commitment from the developer to help out with various public improvements and parkland. This site plan is actually the original concept plan that was approved on the Stone Creek Ranch PDD. But since then, our school superintendent has kind of elbowed her way into the room and made a deal with the developer to purchase the land. You get cash from her now, don't you know, when she buys. But it's a very exciting situation for the school. It's another example of how we're all working together, developers, the school district, and the city, for the betterment of the overall community. Basically, this development got started. Part of the commitment from the developer was to construct a road to the parallel road that will provide a separate access to the school district, and basically they began to talk about the need for the school to have more space, and so they've made an agreement for EISD to acquire basically this piece outlined in red. that they'll be using for future use for school facilities. Now, this is kind of the tricky part. Typically, from the staff perspective, we would require a more specific plan about what the school district, or about what the other owner was going to do with that property before we'd recommend it for approval under a PDD. But there's a couple issues. One, because it's the school, and because we believe we can always trust them to work together with us. And two, because frankly, zoning laws are a little different as they apply to school facilities. We don't have the same kind of direct control we have over other property. This is a request that the property owner has made. This is a deal that the school has made to acquire this property. We've signed a memorandum of understanding, the superintendent and I, that specifically states that the school will, once they have a plan together for what they're going to do with this property, they'll bring it back and show that to the city council about what their plans are before they start. Basically, we're recommending staff's, we're recommending that we approve this amendment to the Stone Creek PDD to basically cut this part of the property off of the Stone Creek Ranch development and allow them to sell it to the school district, and for the school district to have the flexibility of future use in the future. David or Bo, do you have anything to add to any of that? Okay. And Mrs. Duron is here, and I think we might be able to get her to talk if she's willing. I don't know. Did you have anything you wanted to say, Jody? I don't, unless I missed anything.
Just above phase 3, is that ours? Just above phase 3 is we have 40 acres of land that is our property. We are looking at building a transportation site. It's still a ways from Stone Creek, but that road is going to allow us for transportation for our buses to use, get them off of County Line Road. It'll provide another access to 1100. So I think that's going to also help us in traffic concerns and issues, but otherwise, again, when we know what that facility will be, we will make sure we inform the council of what that will be. It could be a future school, it could be a future, another multi-purpose facility, it could be a multitude of things, but that won't be determined until most likely another bond election that would, that includes a bond advisory committee that identifies that as a site for something that we need at that time. So I hope that helps.
So council,
I have two.
yes, go ahead.
The CCN rules all still apply with the developer?
Yes.
Because that's part B of this, right?
Right.
And then.
Well, yes, as part of this amendment, thanks, as part of this amendment to the PDD, we're also amending it to include that the developers agreed to pay for that CCN acquisition, so.
Okay, and my second question is, knowing that it'll be a little while before the school actually utilizes that land, are they still responsible for taking care of it?
Sure. Absolutely.
I just needed that to be said out loud.
Yeah. That's why the developer's getting rid of it.
That's all, Mayor.
Yes.
I've got a question. It says phase 3 drainage criteria will be as typically determined for the educational use. Can you explain that a little further?
I can't, but our engineer can.
Again, I think.
Dr. Duran, can you come up here so that you're on video?
No. I have a teacher voice. Use it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
At this time, we don't know what will be there, but an educational facility or use facility is anything that will be used for school district purposes. Whether it's please don't quote me, none of this is true. I mean, it could be an administration building, which it won't be. It could be a school, it could be a multitude of things. Again, I think what our needs are going to be for the future based on our growth, that will have to be looked at again by a committee, bond advisory committee. We just passed a bond in November. I think this community is I think we will need to look at another bond within the next 2 to 3 years based on the rate of growth that we are experiencing. And so at that time, we'll determine what that property could be used for, if that's a site that we are ready to use at that time, so.
Okay, I was wondering specifically about the drainage criteria, because what I get a lot from my constituents is kids walking to the school and there's that little lake, you know, at the entrance to the student parking lot, you know, where, you know, it floods a lot. You know, I was just wondering about the drainage criteria, if, you know, we're gonna create more. Okay.
I was gonna say that's above my pay grade, I'm gonna pass it on.
Thank you.
The drainage requirements for the school are no different than any other development, so they'll have to submit a complete hydrology report if it's doing detention, on-site detention, to make sure that post-development flows are equal to pre-development flows, or go through a Clomer-Lomer process if they're there through FEMA, just as any other development. No different than ACC, still met all those same criteria, so it's treated the same as any development.
Okay, so it's gonna have to meet city codes.
Whatever the codes are at
okay.
the time they submit their plans and their site development plans, those are the codes that are on the books, that's what they'll have to meet.
Thank you.
Bo,
Yeah, just so we're clear on that, there's no improvements they'll be compelled to make until they build something.
Okay.
Right.
just in my mind, clear it up. The road that the school district will be responsible for building or will build, where does it start and it ends on FM 1100?
So you can see it on the east side there where it says City Park. There's a road that runs on the north-south, and that would tie into the high school there.
Okay.
It's an agreement between the developer and the school right now is to build a roadway there. So residents would be using it to access the city park.
Okay.
That'll be there, that the developer's giving to the city. But it'll also be, the school will use it potentially for buses or drop-off or whatever they see fit is there. As it stands today, it is being designed as a private road, but there's other conversations to see if it could be conveyed to the city. And that also includes First Baptist Church.
Yeah, the First Baptist Church is right here.
Who actually owns the property where that road would be built.
Okay. Stay there for a minute. Anybody else have anything? Obviously, this is an important, well, number one, if we're gonna get some if we're gonna get, the school has some property that they're gonna do something good with, that's excellent. I mean, we certainly all realize the school is gonna have to have those additions soon.
And the CCN is taken care of.
And the
by-
CCN,
Yeah, nothing has changed from the original agreement. They're still dedicating the right-of-way to Tech Stop, which will lead to future potential expansion of FM 1100. They're going to extend, if council approves this and approves the next resolution for the CCN, they'll extend the city's water lines to serve the development this time for water service. The sewer service is no different than what was previously approved. So everything that was agreed upon before, even though their overall development is shrinking, they're not pulling anything back that they had previously told the city that they were doing.
I have one other question. You know, the traffic impact analysis, you know, it says owner shall not be required to perform a traffic impact analysis for the project to the city in relation to non-educational uses. This is probably the biggest issue I hear from my constituents in Peppergrass and Homestead. You know, all the high school students that don't have either a driver's license or insurance parking in front of homes. And I'm just wondering, in a neighborhood this dense, you know, I can see that being a problem. And, you know, I'm just wondering, you know, what this really means is in relation to non-educational uses. So if
the high school students all park in there and, creates a traffic jam, is that a non-educational use, or is it because they're high school students?
I can speak to that, but number one, Stone Creek Ranch had the choice to do a traffic impact analysis or contribute to the County Line Road project, and they chose to contribute to that, and I forget it, 300,000, I forget the number. So they've contributed to addressing that issue, and that issue you describe, we're already experiencing that in Peppergrass. It's public parking. I mean, it's people allowed to park cars on a public street. So I think there may be an opportunity to address
Yeah.
that here with the private street for
this
Stone.
particular project, this is a gated community. So you only have access to those roads. All those roads are private as part of this community, if that's answering your question.
That was my.
Specifically. So there will be interconnectivity with sidewalks from this community into the high school property. But this will be a gated community, all private roads, all private water within the community, all private sewer within that community. It will be completely housed in units there. So as far as parking within there, no one else would be able to park on those streets within that community unless you actually live there or have access into the community.
But just to your issue, that doesn't mean, this is the only project out there that'll have that kind of control.
Yes.
As a practical matter, Harvest Ridge Mud, it too is, we talk about it being a gated community, but because, as Bo described, they'll be responsible for everything in the four corners of their development. But there won't be a gate to get in and out of Harvest Ridge, if you know what I mean. So literally, this one is the only one that there will be a gate that you have an access to get in and out.
Thank you.
What's the size of that red box?
16 acres plus or minus?
16 acres.
Okay. Good questions, good comments. Thank you. Any council, anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say too, this is another example, like the Parks Project, of a lot of teamwork, everybody working together, the developer, the school district, the city, and First Baptist Church. They've been part of these conversations as the next door neighbor too. So it's just another example of everybody working hard to get a project that works good for everybody.
Yeah, I would mention that with the parks and their plan. All of these go to the parks departments. All of these go to the different apartments for their approvals and comments, and then it goes back to the developer. So a lot of these deals aren't being in a closed door system with city staff. It's going out to everybody to review it, have comments, solicit the comments, ask for their asks that they want to see as part of the community as an offset to whatever the different zoning would be for a PDD. So all of those were, and one of the ones that came from this was the city park, giving up property and setting up public parking for that particular parking, and then running water and sewer to that area for restrooms and stuff in the future.
Which is all probably more than what we could compel them to do if they just had straight zoning.
Yeah.
Council, anybody else want to say anything? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve item 3 under new business.
Second.
So a motion has been made by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher, seconded by Councilmember Vega to approve item number 3 under new business as presented and discussed. We'll start the vote with Mayor Pro Tem Brasher.
Frazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, no.
Dennis, yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. 1 nay. Let's go to item number 4. Resolution of the City of Elgin, Texas, authorizing an amendment to the Aqua WSC Master Agreement for transfer of the Stone Creek Ranch Development Water CCN service area from Aqua WSC to the City of Elgin and making certain findings related thereto.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a routine accompanying resolution that we've done here lately a few times. It's tied to the new development agreement for Stone Creek Ranch, as you just approved. This will authorize the purchase of the water service area from Aqua Water Supply under the new development agreement. The developer has agreed to pay, reimburse the city for full cost. No cost to existing ratepayers or taxpayers.
Which we all agree this is a good thing that we're doing here. I think we all agree. Have any questions or comments on this item? Okay, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion made by Councilmember Ibis, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher to pass item number 4 under new business. We'll start the vote with Councilmember Ibis.
Ibis, yes.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes?
Amita's yes.
Gibson, yes.
Abiaga, yes.
Maldonado, yes. Cohen, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. Moving on to item number 5, an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Elgin, Texas, adopted in Chapter 46, Section 46.3 Revised Code of Ordinances, City of Elgin, Texas, 2013, and making this amendment a part of said official zoning map, to wit, to rezone land from R1 Single Family District to PDD Land Development District, located on a parcel of land known by the Travis County Appraisal District as parcel 237109, 36.92 acre tract of land in the William Hines Survey number 53, Travis County, Texas. Being more described in Exhibit A and providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances and resolutions.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a triangular piece of land that fronts on 290. It's kind of a little bit of an odd situation that if you get your bearings out there, this is a piece that's essentially in the middle of the Elm Creek mud, that the new part of the mud that's being built on the north side of 290. As the council knows, that mud development is being built and constructed under a development agreement that is 30 years old. It's been around a long time when the first phase started. So it's a completely different agreement than what we negotiate today. I say all that to say if you think the houses they're building out there are substandard, everyone agrees, I think, but we have no control over those houses that are being built out there. So essentially, with this property, it's kind of an odd-shaped property that was left over that is now owned by the same, I don't know if it's owned by the mud itself or owned by the developers or. Okay, so anyway, they had approached us and wanted to extend their development. They had acquired this property and just take it in and include it in their development. I'm giving a pretty dramatic oversimplification so David can straighten it out. But essentially what we negotiated with them was that we could support smaller lots on the back part where it's shown in blue if they would agree to reserve the frontage along 290 for commercial projects. And if you know anything about our commercial and retail development situation now, we simply don't have enough property available, particularly property that fronts on 290, that will help us begin to see the commercial and retail development that we want to see. So we agreed to support this application. They've reserved that front 16 acres of land all fronting on 290 for commercial use. But I don't know that there were were there other concessions or anything we made, Bo or David, or is that pretty much it?
That's the biggest concession as far as that. They still have to meet all city standards as far as the roadways and alignments and the width of the roads, because they'll be city streets for just this piece.
But it's not big enough to do its own parks. At the end of the day, when it's built, it'll be, as a practical matter, part of the Elm Creek mud.
It's still the same owner, right? That owns the
Yes,
front
right.
and the back?
Yes, right now, it's the same owner right now, yes.
Which is a great idea for us to have commercial up front. Because you're right. Companies are calling left and right, yet we don't have the land to, sometimes we don't have the land to sell them that they're looking for. And I'm sure they're gonna make a nice little penny off of that
Yeah,
too.
so we're hopeful that the Brixton project is gonna get going, as you remember, and there's 30 acres of commercial on the front of it, that's just down the road a little bit, so we'd like to see things happening closer to town, but we gotta take what we can get, so between the Brixton project and this one, we'll be creating a good little patch of available space for commercial retail development. Mr. Callahan's sit-down restaurants, hopefully we can.
There you go.
Exactly what I'm thinking.
That's right.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. Thank you, Tom. Any questions for Bo on this?
Just a question, or maybe it's a clarification. Tom, what did you say at the top when you started to talk about substandard? Can you clarify that?
I
again?
just was saying that we've heard, the Elm Creek mud was approved, as I said, many years ago, and the south side, as you know, was built at that time. But what I think some people don't know is the across the street was also part of that mud that was approved at that time. And again, it's an example of the developer and owner having vested rights that were created way back when. So we've heard plenty of comments that people see the houses that are being built out there without garages and one window and different things that simply wouldn't comply with the city's rules today, and we wouldn't allow those developments to occur like that. But we have no power over that now, so that's why they're building. So that's kind of what will be built all around this piece too, which I think, again, means the blue part will probably end up like those, but that's just something we've heard from people, and once again, we're seeing some new faces tonight, so I just want to work that into the conversation, those aren't houses that the current city council or the city has approved.
And I think the way this was viewed by staff and the Parks Board and everybody else was basically the commercial. It is currently in city limits. It is zoned R1, so they could go put 50-foot lots on there, and you would still probably end up with the same number of houses that they have right there, but you'd have zero commercial, and they would just build the subdivision all the way up to 290.
But we have
Yeah.
no, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
I'm sorry, I realized I didn't really answer your question. I didn't mean to say substandard like they're not in compliance with the rules.
They're just different.
They're examples of the very, very minimum you can build.
Okay, so
Smaller
thi-
lots.
Okay, so this section is associated with what you described as far as
Yes.
current, same developer? I'm sorry.
Yes, it'll be the
Because-
same
Owner
developer.
homes.
I just wanted to say, I suppose they could build different homes there, but I think we should expect it'll just be more of the same.
Yeah.
So were you saying that these homes, even though this is city limits, are gonna be part of that mud?
I don't think they'll be technically be part of the mud.
Yeah, they would still be, these would be residents of the city of Elgin. These are in city limits, it's outside the mud, essentially.
I just meant when it's done on the ground, you won't really know the difference. It'll look
Okay,
it'll
but
look like
I'm-
the same neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, people living in this neighborhood, seeing the same builder, on literally the same street, your next door neighbor isn't within the city limits and
That's right.
the other one is, as far as city services, things of that nature.
That'll happen in your neighborhood too. Right across the street, they'll be outside of the city
Right, yeah, but
limits.
this is same builder, same,
That's right.
yeah, okay.
But we're gonna have that more and more, Harvest Ridge, Peppergrass, they'll touch. That's why you'll notice we've insisted every developer put a big sign up that says you're leaving the city limits, right here, but yes,
Okay.
you're right.
Okay.
It's literally gonna be backyards backing up to each other.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, you can see,
But that's a situation we're
Okay.
gonna have in other places too.
okay. And the other question I had is, why are we limiting the commercial options for this developer? I met with the developer, they said, after meeting with planning and zoning, they can't do banks, meat markets, messenger telegraph services, museums.
Well, wait, you met with the developer?
Yeah, they reached out to me.
Some of that, I can answer-
We're proposing the deal that we negotiated with the developer. They accepted these terms. I didn't.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering why we wouldn't want, like banks or meat market or messenger or telegraph service or museum or
All I can
newspaper.
tell you is the property owner never raised that issue with us.
Yeah, no, but I'm raising this. I'm wondering why the city would not want.
You're presuming, we didn't say anything like that. We've made it a development agreement with the developer. That's what we're proposing. This is another problem we had at our last meeting. The staff's job is to negotiate these deals and to put them on the table. We're not to come to these council meetings and renegotiate the deal here on the spot. That's not appropriate.
Right, but I'm just wondering why the city
I
would.
think I already answered your question.
So what happened is, you were notified by the developer, is that correct? You were contacted by the
Yeah.
developer. Did you want to say something towards this?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, I'm
Hi,
sorry.
yes.
Amanda Brown, I'm with
Yep.
Kimley Horn, I'm the applicant. We've been working very closely with staff on this PDD. We, I believe, emailed the entire council just to offer to answer any questions that you may have, anything like that. We ended up having a call with Councilmember Ibis today just to kind of answer any questions, and it was brought up the prohibited uses that were brought forth by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so we are in no way asking for those to be added back on. We are fine with the PDD as it stands today. And it was just a question about the P&Z recommendations to add a few more prohibited uses to that list.
Okay, thank
But
you for
yes, we
clearing
work
that
very
up.
closely with staff and we're good with how it is as well.
Thank you for clearing that up. Okay, so what we have is we have an ordinance in front of us. And I think the point is well taken that an individual council member or the mayor doesn't negotiate with someone without city staff. And not that you negotiated. No,
Right,
I
no, I
understand that,
didn't.
I understand that, council member. But we certainly don't negotiate with an entity that staff in reality should be the lead on. So, answer your question, apparently it was the planning and zoning request or planning and zoning suggestion. Okay. Anything else?
No.
And it's only the front section, 17 acres, that is gonna be.
It's about, looks like 16, 17 acres.
Which I personally am very excited about. But there's a lot of, there's, no matter what the planning and zone, whatever they didn't, or whatever they tried to exclude or wanted to exclude, there's still so many possibilities of beneficial commercial that we can get in there.
On 290. So that means your phone will start ringing now as we move forward, right?
Hopefully. And again, I would just say this is a classic example, a simple one, but a classic example of how the PDD can work. The developer had underlying zoning to build R1 single family, and that's a vested right they have. So they could build straightforward single family, and we could have required this kind of zoning change. But it's a classic example of now we're getting their commitment to make this property available for commercial use in exchange for us letting them build on smaller lots. So I think it's a good thing. We should move forward.
Council, do we have any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Does the developer plan to build the commercial property, or is it gonna be for sale?
I'd assume not. I mean, it depends, you know. I don't know what the deal is, but they're a home builder who we're dealing with now. So typically that's and truthfully, that works better for the city to have the ideal situation for this, frankly, would be for one commercial developer to buy the whole thing from them and make a master plan for all 16 acres. But it's business. I'm sure if you want to make them an offer, Susie, I'm sure they'd consider it.
You can have all kinds of free time.
Council? If there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I so move that we approve this.
I'll second.
Okay, motion has been made by Councilmember Dennis, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher to approve item number 5 under new business as presented and discussed. We'll start the vote with Councilmember Dennis.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes?
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, no.
Okay, council, motion passes, 1 nay.
Now you gotta go find people, man. You gotta go find restaurants.
Item number 6 under
I'll
new
start
business.
tomorrow.
An ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Elgin, Texas, adopted in chapter 46, section 46-3, revised code of ordinances, city of Elgin, Texas, 2013, and making this amendment a part of said official zoning map, to wit, to rezone land from R1 Single Family District to PDD Planned Development District located on parcels of land known by the Bastrop County Appraisal District as parcels 15312 and parts of 62896, said tract being more particularly described in Exhibit A, and providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances and resolutions.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is for the, what we're calling the, what we've called the Larson Tract for a PDD zoning and development agreement. As shown here, the council has seen this, this project and concept plan basically in the past. It's a very, very similar project to what we, have talked about before and issued these PDDs before. There's a series of different commitments and amenities that the city will be receiving that we wouldn't otherwise receive under conventional zoning, and of course, a big part of this development as well is smaller lots. I think as shown, one of the features that we're excited about this particular project is the boulevard, that a drive that'll be created to go right through the development. Get my pointer to work. This will be a widened roadway with another extender out this way, similar to what you saw with the Creeks Crossing development, where the developer is actually building a bigger roadway than he's necessarily required to. And I think we're talking about a roundabout at this location, right? Still. First roundabout we'll have in Elgin. One of the longer term features that aren't really, that aren't part of this approval tonight, but we think it's important enough to show in this concept plan, is the fact that long term we're hopeful that this boulevard will extend all the way out to 95 and provide some very important traffic relief off of 1100 and create a new access point onto 95 at that intersection. Now that'll be longer term. It'll obviously be a different time, and that property is not currently owned by the developer of this project. But we've been in negotiations and discussions with the city and the developer, and we think that that's going to become a long-term reality. Shoot, I can't keep getting to bring this road and create a new intersection here. Part of this design conceptually would be to create a straight-on a T intersection there, which would then hopefully be at that point reach the warrants for a traffic light at this location to help traffic, but also obviously you can start to create frontage lots for potential commercial development in that location too. But outside of that, it's a very straightforward, I think, single family development with a lot of additional amenities that we wouldn't otherwise get. We're creating a trailhead actually and parking in this development that will help start our goal of creating a trail system all throughout the western part of town that'll connect all these new developments. That's our long-term goal of we can't afford to acquire the land necessary to build a big regional park out there, but we think we can create a trail system that'll connect all those developments and connect them back to Memorial Park and the rec center. I think given the circumstance, Bo, can you stand up and talk a little bit about drainage and traffic out there?
Yeah, I just made some notes earlier on. So, water quality, right now, it's not in your code for residential to do water quality. That was removed by council years ago. It still is for commercial and industrial, but water quality is not there required for, so it's not a give that they've got. Because Elgin was one of the few peoples that enforced it, a lot of the developers still like to make that statement in the PDD because of that reason. For detention for this particular property, there's an entire section about it. We're not agreeing that they're not going to have to do detention. They may end up coming back and deciding to do it because they are on Elm Creek. I'm thinking of a metaphor to explain to council. But if you were to run your water faucet straight down with water coming from rain and have buckets on either side, and if those were your detention ponds and then you let those buckets filled up and then you just dumped them at the same time, how much water is going out, as opposed to if one bucket was kind of letting water out as the other one is filling up, and then you dump it, a whole lot less water that goes on down through. We know for a fact, the city did a study, they mapped out the floodplain back in 2006 for Elm Creek. We know for a fact that FM 1100 is a dam that was built by TxDOT. Highway 290 is also a dam that does not allow the 100-year storm event to pass through. So developers, if you happen to develop on a major creekway or river, it's to your advantage that if you can prove it, not only from the developing engineer, city reviewing engineers, Bastrop County has to review it and approve it. It also has to go to FEMA with their engineers have to approve it. You go through a CLOMR process and a LOMR process, that it's actually a benefit for the overall drainage of the community to not put in a detention pond because the water has already moved down through the channel as the major drainage comes and hits the channel. For instance, Elm Creek is about 6 square miles is the size of the drainage that all hits at 290, if you can imagine that. So allowing as much water to flow through 290 or under FM 1100 before all the upland drainage finally hits is actually a benefit as opposed to holding that water back and then trying to release it all at the same time at a bunch of detention ponds. It generally only works when you are on a major tributary such as Elm Creek. So Peppergrass has done it, ACC has done it, does not have a detention pond, has done the routing. Harvest Ridge is using a combination in some of the areas of their phases to make it work. Every single development is successive, so at a certain point, their engineer is going to do the study, and it makes no more sense. If you look in the PDD, the language is there. The developer is 100% responsible for whatever design, getting the CLOMR and the LOMR, that there's no rise upstream of them on upland properties, and there's no rise in the floodplain downstream of them. And it has to be approved by all those different authorities in order for them to build this particular development without detention. Which means if the development wasn't even done, the difference in the floodplain would be exactly as it is today. So there won't be any effect on Shenandoah, there'll be no effect on ACC, or at the campus down there, or any of the other subdivisions in there. The floodplain as it stands today will be the exact same. So that is in the PDD. If you read that particular paragraph, it's very strict. The onus is on the developer to make it work. It has to go through all the review authorities. If he doesn't, he may actually end up with a detention pond and he'll end up losing lots for the development. That's a lot to take in on drainage. So any questions on the drainage of how that's looked at from a master planning standpoint?
Well, not really a question, but the simple answer is by law, you cannot develop your property, whether you're building one house or 400 houses, in a way that creates adverse conditions for drainage for any neighboring property owner.
Correct.
Okay. And we never waive that rule for anybody. We make sure they demonstrate that they're going to comply with that, but there's no action tonight that would somehow relieve the developer of any of that responsibility.
And council has had a couple of those come in front where they've been miniature subdivisions, 5 homes, maybe 6 homes. They have to comply with that detention requirement in order to do a small development of that nature. So it is a standard, it's not anything I can arbitrarily waive or anybody else. It has to go through that entire process, and ultimately FEMA is the one who will say, yes, this is approved, or no, it's not.
But at the same time, we can't add requirements to that either, right?
No.
It's a federal law.
You guys have a.
As long as the
code.
developer complies with that law, then we're compelled to
Right.
approve the development.
So
What
this
about-
agreement's not waiving any of the
Right.
requirements. The property will be developed with the same runoff as it is today undeveloped. If it's through a detention pond, or if it's through making improvements to the channel in order to put the water down, but either way, that floodplain will not change.
What about traffic, transportation?
So traffic for this particular one, if you read the paragraph on it, there's a specific paragraph calling it. The city is waiving traffic impact analysis related to those interior streets. It says the city will work with TxDOT as part of the overall program, but at the end of the day, I cannot waive TxDOT's requirements on FM 1100. I cannot waive the requirements for TxDOT on 95. We can work with Diane Schultz where we did the conceptual plan, if council remembers, probably it's getting up there 6 years ago, where we designed FM 1100 with TxDOT in help, looking at what all these properties would develop in, and looking at what we thought the density of the homes and everything would be within there. And along those lines, TxDOT is willing to potentially waive it and just do an understanding of the traffic impact analysis, and to take that information so that you can use it later for warrants of lights if needed. Mainly the light that we're talking about, that would be at the high school, that would be at the intersection of FM 1100, AKA Raymond Johnson Drive and County Line Road. So again, it's not something I can waive. I'm specifically waiving them to the single-family residential homes within the subdivision, which is not a requirement that you guys currently have anyway.
But we're getting right away on this too, right?
That's what I was fixing to add.
I
It
was gonna go
says
to the next
27
one.
foot, and so we all know that there's residents of Elgin who they have received notifications from TxDOT that said, we're gonna buy your house, right? To make
So-
that road bigger, and I was gonna ask if that 27 foot is part of that.
Yes, so as part of that conceptual plan that was done years ago with TxDOT, we actually had to go with TxDOT and tell all these property owners, eventually, you will lose your right-of-way through eminent domain from TxDOT. You're just put on notice that at the time we're ready to do this project, we will take your property. 27 feet is being given up by this particular developer, that one, you won't have to take any more property from this development that meets the right-of-way that TxDOT has already said that they need for their particular project. Again, it's a TxDOT project. And number two, ultimately, you guys have a timeline with that conceptual plan. And all the environmental has been approved for TxDOT to move forward with that project, as long as the city is consistently acquiring right-of-way for that entire length of FM 1100, so that TxDOT can move forward with actual design plans with their engineers and bidding and construction. So this just continues to perpetuate that the environmental is already approved for that project, and instead of having to go all the way back. For those who don't know, FM 1100 has been designed at least 2 or 3 different times with TxDOT, because the environmental has expired, and they've gone back to the drawing board and started the project all over again.
But as council knows, tonight, we just got done paying $200,000 for right-of-way we needed on County Line Road. So their donation here is a significant cost savings for us,
It's
potentially.
1.27 acres total.
And we already got the same donation from Peppergrass at the other end. So just another example is we're working with these developers. Essentially, any other project that comes on 1100, we're going to want those people to donate right away so that we can accommodate that project in the long run.
And in this case, the city has been taking the right-of-way from the northern side, because if you were to try to take it from the south side, you're dealing with a bunch of individual property owners along Shenandoah. Much like Eagles Landing, where we made the commitment to take all the right-of-way that was required from the eastern side of County Line Road, as opposed to condemning backyard properties of homes that have already been sold off their back fences.
And so to that,
Similarly, we're doing the same thing on County Line Road Phase 2. The right-of-way takes are opposite of where you have existing residents in subdivision neighborhoods, where you would literally be taking property off the backyard of their homes.
so in this case, with this approval, then we really will have most of the right-of-way already that we need along.
You would, I would assume that the school would work with the city again. That was one part that did not get discussed, Tom, is part of this commitment is they're gonna bring access to the school, so it's no longer going through the subdivision with the school bus route, because I know that has been.
Yeah, this area here, where the buses come through that neighborhood now, this road in the future would, the developers agreed to connect that, so it'll provide a whole new access, and again, to a traffic light hopefully up there that, long-term will obviously benefit the school district as well.
For the boulevard, you've mentioned long-term. How long is long-term?
I forget
They're
what we
committed
said,
to building
how
it
many.
as they're building assuming they can get the property worked out, the private property owner, they're building it as they're building the subdivision. They have to be completed by the time that they're through phase 5 of this project.
Which is a couple years.
Yeah, I
You don't
couldn't
know.
tell you, it depends on how fast the homes are going. They'll
Yeah.
split it up just like all the other developments into multiple plats as they move along. And so they'll be moving that quickly. Right now, based on other developments, it's probably quicker than FM 1100 is going to move forward.
And this is, this connecting road here, this is Harvest Ridge, right?
Correct.
So it's another example of what we were just talking about. This will be in the city, right there at that point. But Harvest Ridge is outside the city.
Harvest Ridge also has a stub out that eventually could be extended over to 95 as well. So if you can imagine in the future, you have FM 1100, you would have this one and you'd have another one off the back of Harvest Ridge. And so you have 3 parallel roadways that are taking all of the burden off of FM 1100 where most people would be going.
And that's just we can tie in the Taylor Road and all that where it comes.
Right. One other little school issue is right here, they've agreed to make a connecting trail that, so kids going to school here will be able to walk and access the school back through there.
And I think for this one, the 50-foot, which is a typical R1 zoning, is 48% of these lots are your standard R1 zoning based on a 50-foot, and then 52% is a 45?
58% is a 45-foot wide, 42% is a 50-foot
Okay.
wide.
Yeah, just,
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
just quickly, I'm just curious, and I don't know if this is an obvious question or not, but much like we were talking about the other tract, was there ever any consideration for any type of retail or business for portions of this section? I mean, you have all of the surrounding subdivisions and housing development. This seems to be a prime area for some type of business, especially in the front end. So I'm just wondering, instead of yet more homes, we just talked a little bit about additional retail and business. Is this area just not appropriate for that consideration?
David, you have a comment on that?
You're talking about how it will develop over a period of time, correct?
No, just whether it was ever considered by
Yeah, the
developers.
short answer is no. I mean, their developer came to a residential project. You know, we've, you know, frankly, I've had a couple people inquire about individual properties along here. I do think, you know, and our response has been, I think along your line, some type of neighborhood servicing commercial, I think
Right.
could really work well there. But we've also told people in the same way, we're not, I don't think the city's gonna just apply commercial zoning to something. The same way, you need to put together a PDD, come forward with a development agreement and say, this is exactly what we're gonna build. But, yeah, the short answer is, this owner from the start was focused on this development, and yeah, that didn't really come up in the
The
conversation.
uses that would go into that is like a C1 related use. There's a zoning map with your packet. There's C1 zoning all the way down 95 in this area right here. So the uses that would go into that PDD for that commercial portion is similar to what would be able to go in those lots, assuming they were vacant lots on 95. So they are neighborhood type uses.
Mary asking
In the
about,
red spot.
this red area here is, it's just a delineation that, excuse me, that I guess that they put on the concept plan because they're still kind of in discussions with this property owner about acquiring that, so. The short answer is that color has no significance to I think, like I said, I think it's kind of what we're talking about. It's delineated the way that, to show that as the potential for commercial use there, right there on that corner in front of 95. But yeah, that's not connected to the action tonight.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about, Bo was able to explain kind of drainage and kind of road and traffic. It seems like, I mean, we're hoping for the best, right? My concern is 1100, obviously, with just the size of it now and yet a number of homes going up. And, you know, what we've seen across the way is they've gone up very fast. And I don't know if the road part is going to come fast enough, I guess is my concern, because you can't predict really how all of that's going to be planned out at the same time. You know, we've seen weather, we've seen just crazy things that could easily be the opposite of what we've just said in the meeting, as far as trying to predict and hoping for the best.
I guess the good news is that FM 11 has a plan. It's on the books at the state. It tends to be more of a funding issue right now. If you look at the length of FM 1100 versus County Line Road, and the city has chopped it up into 3 separate sections that are a little bit. FM 1100 would be one shot for the entire length essentially by TxDOT. So you're talking $15–20 million for a project potentially that they would be looking at. We continue to push as hard as we can with the district engineers. One of the funding mechanisms the city's very active already in is the MPO money. But you are competing against City of Austin, Pflugerville, and Hutto, and everybody else because you happen to be in that same particular bucket. But we have gotten the Travis County District Engineer engaged. The Bastrop District Engineer is super engaged on this. And for a long time, it's a nice idea, but putting the traffic onto TxDOT's road, as you guys saw earlier when we were talking about Harris Street and 95, they only go by what's on the books. They only go by the count of traffic throughout the day in order to make those decisions and to move projects up that priority list, unless you get some kind of funding from an MPO.
Yeah, and I would say.
Require another traffic ticker?
Well, we can, and I think, but Bo, it's a fair comment to make that TxDOT is way more deliberate in their planning and execution than we are, and it is similar to, you and I talked about this before, the way TxDOT's system works for traffic lights of if you just have a few more accidents at this intersection, then we'll put a light up, is the way they look at things. And so this is part of it too. They're not going to build improvements based on maps. They're going to build improvements based on true counts of traffic. So that does seem to be a system destined to get behind when you're growing like we are. But that really is the system we have. But I also think it's imperative, or it's a good thing to talk about when we talk about County Line Road. That's a decision that the council made of, there were Travis County, there's other opportunities, other grants, there were maybe possibilities of getting other funding if we were willing to wait any number of years. But sometimes in a fast-growing community, you reach this point where the only way we're going to get the County Line Road done now is to pay for it ourselves. Now, I'm not suggesting we do this on 1100, but that's kind of the choice where we're at. And frankly, because I feel like given all the growth that we've done here, we've not asked TxDOT for a lot, that I think Bo and I, we've always thought we were going to be all in on pushing them on 1100. And so that's the irony of this situation. By adding this development will actually move us up that list. But in the meantime, yeah, the houses, well, frankly, are probably going to get built quicker than the road's going to get rebuilt.
Bo, I want to, did you have something to say?
Yes. Hi, I have a clarification. My name is Courtney McWhorter. I'm the attorney for the applicant, Prima Vesta Land Company. We actually do have a contract to acquire the right-of-way. It's in your packet. It's a memorandum of purchase agreement. That will be closed upon approval of the PDD. We've worked with the landowner to acquire that property. The landowner is also part of the application process with us. We are not acquiring the commercial use, but we've agreed to bring the landowner in for the commercial designation. And right now we've noted that as C1. And so it's not if we can acquire the right-of-way, it's once we get the PDD approved, we're closing on the contract. This is something that, it's in your roadway plan, I know the city wanted to have this expansion. The developer is taking on that cost of purchasing the property for the right-of-way, building out the right-of-way themselves, and then it would be dedicated to the public. This right-of-way, let's see, so we're thinking phases. We've asked to be developed over phases. Right now, we have a 5-year outside date. So if we have to build it within 5 years. So if that answers your question.
Okay.
Do you all have any other questions? Sorry, as I'm
Well,
up here.
I think we need to make clear, that property owner and that property is not subject to this PDD. The PDD is with the property owner of the development.
The applicant is, no, there's two applicants, the Magoni family and the Prima Vista land. So you're considering the commercial tract at 5.86 acres, and you're considering the 197 acres.
Well, the Magoni family, I didn't intend to talk about this like this, but the Magoni family is not subject to this PDD.
Okay. So we've agreed to work with the
Well,
Magoni family
I don't
to
think we should
provide them
talk
support.
about this here.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I guess maybe we should table this until we can get that clarified.
Is there not an agreement on what we're talking about here with the two?
Yeah, apparently not.
So can we, well, let me ask,
No,
we've
no,
submitted,
we can't negotiate it here.
we're not negotiating, can I just notify you that we do have an agreement with the Magoni family on the purchase of the right-of-way?
But you don't own the property today.
We have their consent to act.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You can't apply to property you don't own.
Okay, so
Well,
the
the
order,
right-of-way is not, the PDD is not applied to the right-of-way. We've agreed to build the right-of-way. The PDD is applied to the residential tract.
Well, again, that's, you and I have never had this conversation. You've never been involved in any negotiations with the Magonis, correct? With me?
No, sir.
Okay. So
So the-
I'm just telling you, that's not my understanding. What I present to the council, I want to make sure I have a clear understanding that I'm presenting to you. This is a different understanding than what.
the question I'm asking is the ordinance that we're looking at, the ordinance that we have all this information on. Can we not go ahead and vote on this ordinance as it
Sure, we
is?
can, if we just understand. It just applies to the Prima Vista property, the yellow. Prima Vista does not own that property in red, I don't think, today. Well, I'm just
Correct.
saying, is that correct?
That's a correct statement. That's an
Okay,
accurate statement.
that's-
That's,
I'm not trying to complicate it.
Okay, so, thank you very much. I appreciate.
And I
the
guess,
information
Mayor,
that
you're
you've
right, I
given.
think the council could approve it with that condition to understand. I just think it needs to be clear that the Magonis or no other property owners are making a commitment on this PDD. The developer is, the owner is, what they own property.
Well-
I think there was the councilwoman's question is, Exhibit H basically says there's a memorandum of the idea that they can acquire the right of way
Yeah,
at a
that's-
later date. At a later date.
That's not the same thing as
Right.
owning it.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
The question I want the council to make sure that we understand is the ordinance as it's presented and as by the information that we have. That's what we're acting on.
Sue said it best, it's the yellow. You know, we talk about this all the time. When we show people a picture, they never forget the picture they see. I'm saying it's theoretically, because they don't own the property, that whole road, the right-of-way, the red area, that is not in stone yet. And I just want that to be clear to everybody, that we believe it's gonna happen that way. We believe we have that negotiated with the property owner. We believe the property owner and the developer in agreement about all that. But that's not the same as what I've said earlier tonight. And that's what I just want to make clear on the record. If you're so inclined, Mary, yes, that with that distinction, it'd be fine to go forward. But right now, that other property is owned by others, and this action tonight does not compel that other owner to do anything.
I'm good with the ordinance as presented. I think her question was about the commercial, and knowing if that happens, but that's nothing we're voting on tonight, then on 95, that could be that way later.
That's
Right?
exactly what I'm trying to present.
Okay.
But that, just as we talked about before, the development agreement is about the four corners of this development.
Yeah.
We believe we can achieve that road. We believe all that in red can happen as I've described. But especially tonight, I think it's really important that we're crystal clear on the record about what action the council's taken and what action the staff is recommending.
I've got a question for Bo. You were saying basically, 1100 and 290 were dams?
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, like, if those dams break, like the flood, where it took out the bridge
Right.
on 290 and created that
So,
traffic nightmare.
On record, TxDOT's design standards for a quote-unquote culvert crossing generally means that you can pass a 25-year storm event, and then a 50 or 100 technically would go over top of the road, so when you're talking to washout. That is their standard design. They generally don't deviate that much from it. And so when I call it a damming effect, is essentially there's a backwater condition that's part of the models that you look at, is that if a 100-year event was occurring, you have a certain amount that would be going over top of the road, but you have a lot of water that starts backing all the way up Elm Creek, up to different properties, and that starts to spread out and create that floodplain. So as part of the project, which we've already done the conceptual plan, all the modeling for this particular development also ties in because everything was modeled for TxDOT as part of that conceptual plan. All the hydraulics had to be looked at. So all of those things are tied in as a master plan. So there's no deviation. Everybody understands that when TxDOT widens FM 1100, they don't have an intent to go in there and put in a whole new ton of different boxes and whatnot. They're just gonna extend them, for their particular design standards. Now, if it were to change, it won't go smaller, it would go bigger, but then that TxDOT as part of their project, they would have to remodel Elm Creek at least all the way down to 290 to make sure it doesn't have any negative impacts, most likely on the downstream people, because they're kind of being protected right now by FM 1100. If you let more water through, then you potentially could flood out people on the downstream side. So again, it's all part of a master plan. Each of those communities is all dovetailed in. Whoever comes first and whichever agreement comes first may have a benefit, may not have a benefit as far as what the engineering shows, but they are all tied in together.
And one other thing, because I get this on Peppergrass a lot, is TxDOT gonna allow people to go to downtown Elgin, or are they gonna have to go towards Austin like Peppergrass?
Yeah, as part of the overall FM 1100, that, we call it a pork chop, that would disappear. It would be a full access there on Peppergrass. That was put in with the idea it will be a temporary.
Okay.
Temporary of 12 months, maybe not so much, but in TxDOT's mind, it is temporary. It would go through and that will be a full access. It's hard to see right here. I think most of you guys have seen the roll plots for FM 1100. Same kind of system, putting in median cuts, trying to control traffic to move traffic east and west direction and not have a bunch of turn-in lanes back and forth. As you can see, where they came in with their collector road, where it lines up with another intersection with Shenandoah, that's based on the TxDOT overall plan of where we wanted them to come into, based on where we thought the future medians would be for FM 1100, based on the design today.
Okay, and the other thing I'm just wondering about, I know that extension is sometime in the future, people trying to get out of this and, drop or pick off their kids at the middle school.
Right.
Is that gonna create kind of a traffic nightmare?
For the interim on FM 1100, I'm not gonna propose that anything that happens along FM 1100 until it's built won't create some kind of traffic nightmare, no different than County Line Road today.
It's a big traffic problem out there today.
Correct, it's already a traffic problem. The idea of anything that they connect on in the future, if that moves forward on 95, they'll still be beholden to TxDOT at the end of the day. Now, have they had conversations with TxDOT in the city to make sure it aligns with Avenue F because you want major roadways to be at a cross intersection essentially? Yes, that was all input that was provided.
Bo, you've done an excellent job of explaining all of this. You have, and I hope that you've alleviated some of the concerns that some of the speakers and the council members had previously on the effects that this would have, so thank you. I appreciate that.
And everybody should know that he goes off the 100-year flood plan, not the 25-year flood plan. And that's important to me.
We've seen those numbers change.
And Tom, do you want to address who gets a letter and who doesn't get a letter legally, who are obligated?
Right, we've heard that before, that is a concern that we, under the law, only property owners within 200 feet are notified of any change, a zoning change, different issues we have to deal with. So what I will tell you is that we've thought about as I guess I don't know if Shenandoah has a HOA, but
We don't.
well, what we're doing with the new developments is to say anybody in 200 feet and the HOA gets a letter, and then the HOA can send it out to everybody else. So we'll have a better system as we move forward. But you know, as we've told people lately, I think one of the things, that none of this information is secret. We're glad to have people interested. But truthfully, we post our agendas every meeting. You got to try to keep up with that, or you can feel free to call our office, my office, anytime to find out what's going on in the neighborhood. But our process is to notify people 200 feet, and we do a good job at that. So, but don't feel like we're trying to not invite anybody. That's just what we do, is send it out to the people that we're compelled to do, and that's a state law.
Okay, council, so we've heard discussions and we've heard explanations on item number 6 under new business. It's an item that can be tabled if we don't feel comfortable. It's an item that we can vote on if we get a motion and the vote is seconded. I mean, the motion is seconded. So think about what you want to do, and I'm gonna leave it up to you guys to give me more comments or either make a motion.
I make a motion to table this.
I'd second that.
Okay, a motion is, David, did you want to say something before?
Yes, if you're going to table the item, table it to a date and time specific potentially as well, if you could.
Can we also get detail as to why we're tabling it? Because I think that's important to know, to clarification, so that the information that comes back is clear.
One of the reasons I want to table it is to get both the commercial and that issue taken care of.
You'll have to explain what you mean by
Well,
that. There's no issue.
I thought there was some confusion, about the commercial portion. Okay.
There's no commercial part. There's
Okay.
it's just, we're trying to show long-term idea what it is. That's what's complicated about it. It's a different owner that owns that property. We can't, through this PDD, allow for commercial zoning. This is why I didn't want to talk about it here, because it just confuses the issue. All of that will have to take place a separate time and a separate action by the council. But we can't, unless the developer acquired all that property and owned it right now, which they don't, we have to involve a third property owner. And, frankly, this is another case where I'm starting to talk about, I think, it's private conversation I've had with that property owner, and it shouldn't be subject to this kind of debate. So I just want you to understand, that's a totally separate item to me.
Okay.
We're-
One of my main
I want to
issues.
show you that that's where we all think it'll happen.
Okay.
But when that gets zoned, how it gets zoned, all of that's a totally different conversation that we'll have at a future date.
I was going to say, one of my main issues that I'm asking this to be tabled is the access to the middle school, because I think that's going to be, needs to be addressed. Even if we don't go all the way to the commercial, if they own a little portion of that road, or there's some,
They don't own any of that.
they don't own it?
Like Sue said, it's the yellow.
Okay.
That's where their property stops. So which is the point? Can't make any commitments to you about any of that stuff you're asking about because they don't own that property.
Because what I heard from the lawyer was that them getting that property is contingent on them waiting for us to vote tonight on this other property.
Right, but
So-
I was gonna say, to me, if they don't get that other property, there needs to be something in the PDD for access to that middle school, whether it's sidewalks. The sidewalks right now along 1100 are on the south.
Thomas, that's the main point. Those are different property owners.
Right, but
They
they,
can't compel the different property owners under the PDD.
but you could compel the property owner to install sidewalks similar to Pepper.
It's not their property.
Hey, wait,
They,
They do, it is part of it.
right, but not along 1100.
He's talking
No,
about
not
the road.
along the 11.
Right, so I think that if that other property isn't acquired, I think there needs to be some discussion about.
The sidewalks that are already out there that do come and connect into that property that run all the way.
Just to the nursing home,
To the nursing home.
right, and then it goes across the street.
About making sure that they would tie in at least to that nursing home school there.
Okay, so a motion has been made and seconded to table the ordinance item number 6 under new business. Motion has been made by Councilmember Ibis and seconded by Councilmember Callahan. We'll start the vote with Councilmember Ibis.
Ibis, yes.
Dennis, no.
Frazier, no.
Ramirez, no.
Vega, no.
Gibson, no.
Arriaga, no.
Maldonado, no.
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, yes.
Okay, motion does not pass. So now we're back on this ordinance. Give me some thoughts or give me a motion, guys.
I make a motion that we approve the PDD as it's presented for this yellow area that we've seen.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, motion has been made by Councilmember Dennis, seconded by Councilmember Maldonado to pass item number 6 as presented and discussed. Is that correct,
Yes.
Councilmember? Okay. We'll start the vote with Councilmember Dennis.
Dennis, yes.
Frazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, no.
Gibson, no.
Arriaga, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Callahan, no.
Ibis, no.
Okay, if I do this correctly, the motion did not pass. Is that correct?
Did we have 5 yeses?
I don't think we had 5 yeses. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Was it a yes and a yes?
Yes and yes?
Okay, then the motion passes. 5-4. Thank you, Councilman. Item number 7, under new business. A resolution of the City of Elgin, Texas, authorizing an amendment to the Aqua WSC Master Agreement for transfer of the Larson Tract Development Water CCN service area from Aqua WSC to the City of Elgin and making certain findings related thereto.
Thank you, Mayor. This is, again, a accompanying item to the prior action item to part of the development agreement on the Larson tract was a commitment by the developer to reimburse the city for the cost of acquiring the CCN. No cost to ratepayers or taxpayers.
Okay, council, is there any questions or comments on that? Please, we're doing a meeting here. Thank you. Council, is there any questions or comments on this item? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher, seconded by Councilmember Callahan?
Ibis.
I'm sorry. Seconded by Councilmember Ibis. We'll start the vote to approve item number 7.
Frazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, no.
Gibson, no.
Arriaga, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Callahan, no.
Ibis, no.
Dennis, yes.
Okay, let me count them again. 1, 2, 3,
Same.
4, 5. Motion passes. 5-4. Council, I want to call us into executive session at 9:08 PM. You have 5 minutes, take a little rest break, and then we'll be back in the
Here, you want?
Okay. I like her. I had this gum in my mouth.
Did you want it?
No, I don't. It's mint gum.
We're coming out of executive session. We took no action. We'll reconvene into regular session at 9:54 PM. Do we have any announcements to make?
Yes, I do.
Okay?
Of course, the Elgin 150th birthday celebration is ongoing, and you got some literature there in front of you, the things that are coming up most urgently or near term. Last Friday night, we started Music in the Park, and that's going to go every Friday night through May. And so there's a whole big lineup there that you can see, and it's going to be some great times there. Next Thursday evening at Sip, Shop, and Stroll is also local lore, and if you want to know more about that, call Amy, because she's all excited about local lore, and that's something that's been going on for a good number of years, and it's really a great thing. The scouts actually can earn badges for some of the stuff that they do here. And then you see the calendar of events through the rest of the year, and this is going to be you're going to see more of this coming to a mailbox near you before the end of the month, I guess, right at the 1st of May. It's going to be the 78621, and it's going to have everything you should.
It came out today.
It did, okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It came, yeah.
I didn't see it, okay, yeah, so it's everything you would want to know or not know about the sesquicentennial is going to be in there, so look for that. And Sarah O'Brien sat back there in that chair. I was going to introduce her, but we ran her off.
Okay, is there any other announcements?
Mayor, I kind of mentioned this before, but just want to, next meeting on the 19th, we'll be presenting the schematic on the police station. We're really excited about that project.
Awesome.
Cool. We'll be looking for council's approval to authorize that moving forward, so I hope everybody can make it, at least for that part.
I'd like to, in case any of you talk with any storm victims, the Community Intake Center is happening at First Baptist Church. That's today. Of course, it's over today and tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that's a combination of the Austin Disaster Relief Network and the Bastrop Long-Term Recovery Center. And they're at the First Baptist Church for those hours, and they're the perfect contact for, if you need something and you need some help, they can give you a direction. So.
Chief, did you have some more? I stopped by there late this afternoon just to check in with them, see, make sure they had everything they needed, if there's anything we could do to assist. They were, had about a dozen people processed through this morning that otherwise very light later in the day.
Let's make sure we get the word out as best we can about that. The second announcement I wanted to make was the Bastrop Central Appraisal District is also offering possible tax exemptions for storm victims. So if you talk to any storm victims that have had actual damage to their structures or their house or whatever, ask them to get on the Bastrop Central Appraisal District website, and there's an application they can fill out for possible relief from tax exemptions.
Sweet.
So that's good to know too.
Soon I may have had some damage.
My last announcement, and Michael, you're gonna have to help me on this, but we received a $350,000 grant to help with our SCADA operation.
We received notice about that. Bo's designing it right now, right? The TRC is, but Sid Miller wanted to take credit for it, so
Yeah,
he sent you that letter to say, but yeah, that's a big one. The SCADA system, if you remember, that's basically the system that measures the water towers and tells when we need more and all that. It's frankly, in my experience, pretty rare to have that in a sewer system too. So it really is a classic grant item that we probably wouldn't be able to justify affording ourselves. But so the 350 makes it really good for us. We're excited about it, and so it should help us to not have to depend on alarms and lights to tell us when a sewer lift station might be overrun. Yes.
Yes. And I'd also like to announce the fact that the city of Elgin will be waiving permit fees for the 4 or possibly 5 city residents out on 1704 that were affected by the storm.
Go ahead. Just pretty much anybody that's had storm damage, if they have to get a building permit and tell us that's what it's about, we'll try to work with them on the fee. Okay.
Amy's not here, is it shot and straw next week?
It is, I announced that.
Next week, right?
Yes. Local Law Resident Association with Zip Copper.
Okay.
Next Thursday.
Anybody else have comments? Announcements, I'm sorry.
I guess I just remember this right now. So asbestos removal was completed at both Depot Street locations. And then asbestos removal started yesterday at the old cotton gin. So that process.
Oh, wow.
Yes, that was the Poth building and the little building that, are we ready to tear it down now? Yeah. So, yeah, that's good news, and that was the last step to moving on with the construction project now. Another real positive thing we have happening in town.
Anybody else? Council, do we have any further business to discuss? If not, I adjourn this meeting at 10:01 PM.